This September 2nd, 2020 meeting of the Oyster River Cooperative School Board will come to order. We are still technically in a hybrid remote model, although I expect that will be changing probably in the next meeting. That's something we're going to be discussing later. But because we still are in this technical remote model, I will need to read a statement again that you've heard previous meetings. As chair of the Oyster River Cooperative School Board, I find that due to the state of emergency declared by the governor as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and in accordance with the governor's emergency order number 12 pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, this public body is authorized to meet electronically. Please note that there is no physical location to observe and listen contemporaneously to this meeting, which was authorized pursuant to the governor's emergency order. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I'm confirming that we are A, providing public access to the meeting by telephone with additional access possibilities by video or other electronic means. We are utilizing Microsoft Teams for this electronic meeting. All members of the school board have the ability to communicate contemporaneously during this meeting through this platform, and the public has access to contemporaneously listen and, if necessary, participate in the meeting through dialing the following number: 1-603-766-5646 and ID code 461362 #, or by clicking on the following website, http://www.orcsd.org/stream. B, providing public notice of the necessary information for accessing the meeting. We previously gave notice to the public of the necessary information for accessing the meeting, including how to access the meeting using Microsoft Teams or electronically or telephonically. Instructions have been provided on the website of the ORCSD board agenda for September 2nd, 2020. C, providing a mechanism for the public to alert the public body during the meeting if there are problems with access. If anybody has a problem, please call 603-280-4202 or email at orcsd-video@orcsd.org. D, adjourning the meeting if the public is unable to access the meeting. In the event the public is unable to access the meeting will be adjourned and rescheduled. Please note all votes that are taken during this meeting shall be done by roll call vote. Let's start the meeting by taking roll call attendance. Okay, Denise Day?
Here.
Al Holland?
Here.
Dan Klein?
Here.
Brian Cisneros?
Here.
Michael Williams?
Here.
Tom Newkirk? Here. We need to have a motion to approve the agenda. I have no changes to it, so unless anybody else has changes.
There's only one. It's like the approval of the memorandum of understanding should actually come after the non-meeting. Because it doesn't make sense to have approve it first and then have the non-meeting to kind of explain it.
I'm not sure we need a non-meeting anyways.
Okay, all right.
I mean, we could go on, but
I'm just saying, the way the agenda is structured, if you're going to explain the memorandum of understanding, you'd want to do that first before you approved it.
yeah. I guess we thought there was nothing in that wouldn't cause us need, okay. Okay, so, I'm sorry, do you have a motion, Denise?
I'll motion to approve the agenda.
Moved by Denise, second by Brian. Denise Day?
Yes.
Al Holland?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Brian Cisneros?
Yes.
Michael Williams?
Yes.
Tom Newkirk? Yes. The agenda is approved. Before we get to the business of the meeting, we need to note the passing of a good friend, colleague, Kenny Rotner, who passed away last week. And I think we all feel this loss, and I'd asked Al, who's worked very closely with him, both on the town council and on the school board, and endless conversations of the comparative strengths of the Yankees and the Red Sox. So to say something about Kenny, and then if anybody else would like to add anything, feel free to do that. Then we'll move on to the work of the night. Al?
So Kenny had a really wonderful vision of community, and he shared it widely. It's inclusive, it's caring, and it's vibrant. And he believed that the key to really making that vision a reality was providing opportunities to form relationships and bonds both within a family and between families in our area. And he really, really devoted himself to trying to create those opportunities. He was a local family physician, loved by many, timer cheerleader for his daughter Emma on many swim meets and many Oyster River kids. He joined the Oyster River School Board when its foundation was a little bit wobbly. And he, if that wasn't enough, joined the Durham Town Council and became our chair pro temp and worked tirelessly to build the Durham Trail Network. When I think back of Kenny, he was really in his element when he was working through community issues, whether it was balancing the elementary enrollment or dealing with what to do with the historic dam. He believed in the power of civic engagement to problem solve. He was never, especially anybody who ever watched him at the round table, shy about sharing his 2 cents, but he believed that everybody should have an opportunity to share their 2 cents as well. And while that may have led to some really, really painfully long meetings, it was a way for everyone to work to find common ground and to move forward. And I think Kenny really felt that working with this process was important because it built the trust that was necessary to deal with the next challenge. And when I look back at what Oyster River School System and what the town of Durham have accomplished over the last 7 years, it's pretty clear that Kenny was right. So thank you, Kenny, for the frequently hilarious and always great conversations. While I'm not ready to become a Yankees fan, I do appreciate your efforts to convert me. We'll keep working on what your vision of community was, and don't forget to say hi to Jerry for us.
Well,
Thank you.
I'd just like to add, my sense of working with Kenny, both as a friend, as a swimmer, as a board member, but just the way he was always present for you, the way he paid attention to you, the way you felt when you're with him, and that time didn't matter because he was there for the duration. And I think that always created some conflict when he was in the medical practice where he had to be on the clock. That was not his style. That was not his style to look into the computer. His style was to look into your face. And it reminded me of a quote from The Great Gatsby. There's a famous quote about Gatsby's smile, and I think it fits Kenny's smile in the sense that you had being with him. It's just a few sentences. He smiled understandingly, much more than understandingly. It was one of those rare smiles with a quality of eternal reassurance in it that you may come across 4 or 5 times in life. It faced, or seemed to face, the whole external world for an instant, and then concentrated on you with an irresistible prejudice in your favor. Kenny, are there things that people want to say?
I'll just briefly reiterate, thank you, Al, by the way, for doing this. And Tom, I think you really hit the nail on the head. Kenny was someone who had the unique ability to just immediately convey that you were important to him. And he also embodied something that I feel really proud about this school board and, in its various iterations. He was a person who had time for your ideas. You could disagree with him and still be friends. He was always respectful. He always wanted to hear what everybody else thought. And he had the conviction of his own opinions. And he was an amazing advocate for not only our district, but our entire community and region. So I really miss him.
John, if I may. Sure. So for me, Kenny was the voice of social justice, where regardless of the issue that we were facing at any level in the district, his first question was, is this good for kids? And, he was the person who always asked that question, whether we were dealing with policy or we were dealing with finance or whether we were dealing with controversial issues. What is best for kids? So that voice for social justice will be dearly missed by me because, as Al alluded to, and Tom and Dan, he had such a strong voice advocating for the children of this district, and I will miss him.
So we certainly want to wish Tracy Schroeder and Emma Rotner, give our sincere best wishes to them in this excruciatingly difficult time. But I think we all feel blessed that we didn't have enough time with Kenny, but blessed for the time that we had with him. So we need to move on to public comment. Jim, did you have any?
There is no public comment tonight, Tom.
Okay. We need a motion to approve the July 8th, 2020 minutes. Denise?
I'll motion to approve the July 8th, 2020 minutes.
Moved by Denise. Is there a second? Second by Brian. Are there changes? None? Okay, Denise Day,
Yes.
Al Holland,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Francis Narrows,
Yes.
Michael Williams,
Yes.
Tom Newkirk, yes. Those minutes are approved by a 6-0 vote. We also need a motion to approve the August 19th, 2020 regular minutes. I don't know, we're going to do both of them together. Let's do them separately, okay? The August 19th, 2020 regular minutes, could I have a motion? Denise?
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Denise, second by Brian. Are there changes to those?
I have a couple.
Okay, Michael?
So at the bottom of page 7, the paragraph that starts with my name, would like to replace that with Michael Williams suggested that they review tonight in non-meeting. So that sentence refers to the open board position, which was not discussed at that point in time.
Okay.
And then,
Do you have that, Wendy? Okay.
and then on page 9, the vote on the policies at the top of the page was 5-1, with me voting no. And also on page 9, I think the whole section, the 3 lines on non-meeting should be removed from the minutes. That we don't have minutes for the non-meeting, and
Yeah, okay.
and the open board seat was not part of that anyhow.
Okay. Other changes? Okay, with those changes, Denise Day,
Yes.
Al Holland,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Francis Narrows,
Yes.
Michael Williams,
Yes.
Tom Newkirk, yes. 6-0, those are approved. We need the non-public meeting minutes. Denise?
I'll make a motion to approve the non-public meeting minutes of August 19th.
Moved by Denise, second by Brian. Changes to these? Hearing none. Denise Day,
Yes.
Al Holland,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Francis Narrows,
Yes.
Michael Williams,
Yes.
Tom Newkirk, yes. So those minutes are approved. So we have announcements, commendations, and comments from the board. Do you have any?
I have one quick one. So the Integrated Waste Management Advisory Committee for Durham is running a composting challenge. We're really looking to do a pilot program with 20 families to try to figure out the ratio of compostable material to non-compostable material. And so we're working with Parks and Rec to offer the program, and so for $10 you get a container, some compostable bags, and a data sheet, and we'll run for 6 weeks measuring the compostable versus non-compostable. People participating then will have to drive it up to the transfer station and dump it off in our bins for Mr. Fox. While you're up there, you can drop off your corrugated cardboard and your aluminum cans, which we make money on. And the process is really us working to try to figure out how to do a compost program in Durham. And so more details will be in Friday updates, and you can sign up at the Durham Parks and Rec website.
So last Friday, we had our third walkthrough of the middle school site, and it's just amazing, the changes each time that I guess they had 2 weeks to put up this amount of steel, and we're up to the 4th floor and had almost a third of it done. And then you go by it today, and you see the risers for the concert hall. So I mean, the progress on it is really astonishing. So just grateful for that, Andre and Jesse and Adam and Rob, the people that showed us. It's been a thrill just to see this thing come to life. So thank you so much.
Our pleasure.
Other comments? Okay. So now we do have an update from Ron and Andre. So, floor is yours. Thank you for coming. Good to see you again.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Ron, just so you know, you have to speak right into the microphone, otherwise the sound isn't traveling.
Is that better? All right. So, of course. So I just quickly go through this. I know the highlight for tonight is Andre. So these are just some images. That's actually what it'll look like when you see the skeleton that's going up right now in terms of the steel. When you walk into the front door of the school, we have developed the lobby space. Some of you may not have seen this, and one of the concepts was as you walk in the door for the school district to tell their story. And so we are thinking of, as you come into the lobby, there would be a wall where we could talk about events, placeholders, you know, the history of the school district in all three towns, all three communities working as one. And that would also tie into our energy dashboard monitor, which is going to describe to everybody how the building is operating from an energy efficiency and a sustainability point of view. And then maybe we have something that talks about the future. And so this mural, if you will, would be on one side of the lobby as you come in, and it would be something that really reflects the values and the vision, both educationally and sense of place for the three towns, the three communities. What you see here also in the lobby is the river that's starting to go through when you start at the front door. And we talked a little bit, there was a question last time we met, Denise, when you asked about colors in the building. And so one of the things that we talked about from the get-go has been biophilic design and how that affects students. And so the colors within the building are derived from that. And there have been studies that prove that the working memory and the superior memory and distractions are dealt with in this kind of environment. And so those were really where the colors come from. And as you walk into the building, you can see that. So we've got the river running through the lobby space. You've seen these before. In the gymnasium, there's a lot of effort in the gym to have this be personalized to the middle school itself. And then what you may not have seen, these are updated renderings. So when we talk about the risers that have been installed, the balcony risers, this is pretty much what you're looking at in the concert hall. And this is your view from those risers looking down into the concert hall. And then this is sort of in the back of the concert hall, if you will, looking forward or facing forward. And then we have talked about using the concert hall as your new meeting place, or one place you could use within the district for your board meetings. And so even though it's a large space, you can have these same type of intimate meetings out on the performance floor. And then as you come out of the concert hall on the right, there's the library right there in front of you, the serving area, and then to the right, again, heading back towards the music spaces, and then up the stairs. Upstairs, we have our groups, our teams, if you will. And so, again, we want that color scheme, talking about nature in each one of these, and it's a way to identify the teams. One would be the beaches of New Hampshire, the forest of New Hampshire, the mountains of New Hampshire, and then the lakes and streams of New Hampshire. And these colors, you know, they look differently on different computers and projectors. But the gist of this is that we will be picking colors with the school district that represent the colors of those areas of New Hampshire. And then that's a sort of a blow up, if you will, of the team space. Around this team space is your 4 core subjects of math, social studies, English, and science. And then that is looking at the chorus room on the second floor and down into the common area below, the learning commons. And that's it. So I was kind of hoping that Andre would take care of the rest.
Thank you, Ron. Well, if I can keep from fogging up, we'll manage well. So thank you for having us over this evening. I understand that you guys have the toughest job in town these days. making the right decisions for all the various students and parents and things. I don't envy you. I have a niece that's a superintendent in New York, and she tells me daily about the phone calls and complaints and never making the right choices. So I applaud your efforts. Seems as though everything's going pretty well. We are pleased to announce that things are going well. The good weather this spring and summer, the students not being on site early on in the project have all helped to keep us on schedule. We're working to have the completed pricing in about 2 weeks. So next time we get together, I will hopefully be able to report the final results of all the bidding. As of the end of August, we've completed 4 months of work. We've billed about 6.6 million, or 15% of the total GMP. And this has been on 63% of the site work, 100% of the geothermal wells and piping, 90% of the concrete formwork, which is the foundation of the building, and 35% of the structural steel. Interestingly, there's about 7 miles of pipe associated with the geothermal system. There's 70 wells that were drilled. Each one is 500 foot deep and has a pipe going down and a pipe going back up. And all those pipes then tie into a geothermal vault where they are combined and then sent into the school. We'll show you some pictures of that. Jesse Fan from our office will walk you through. He's on site most every day, so he knows that more intimately than I do. During steel erection, which is kind of our major emphasis right now, we will also be installing the 4 stair towers. And one of our future goals is to hopefully have kind of a ceremony, both what we call a topping off ceremony, where we will plan to try to have all of the students and various other entities, people who were associated with the project and worked very hard on getting it completed or voted and approved, to be able to sign 1 or 2 beams. And those beams will go up kind of as a ceremony, and it'll be neat for students who attend the school to have said, yep, my name's up there. So we look forward to doing that in the upcoming weeks, as well as also having another walkthrough maybe in 6 or 8 weeks, where we'll be able to take guests all the way up to the 4th floor, if you're willing to walk, because the elevator will not be ready yet. Also, during this period of time, as we move up with the steel, we'll be pouring slabs. We have to kind of keep 2 levels of deck above us when we're pouring a slab. So we can't do it quite yet, but once the decking is in place in a certain section all the way up, then we can start to pour the intermediate slabs for the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th floors. Also, the underslab piping has gone in, so the kitchen, which was a lot of complicated pipe work, has just been completed. And they'll be moving over to where we have a suite of toilets in kind of the front administrative area. And that will happen in the next week or so. And once those are ready and then we have the steel up, we'll be able to get the first 4 slabs in as well. We'll have the metal stud work happening kind of on a similar schedule. As soon as we have a slab poured, that will begin as well. So hopefully by the end of the December or so, we'll be weather tight with a roof overhead. And then we'll move on to the exterior shell and things like that. So that's generally kind of our program. The one other thing that we also have scheduled for the upcoming week is to put the foundations, which are basically 3-foot by 3-foot footings in for the solar canopy. So those will go in, and then those are in the upper parking lot that's up against the retaining wall. And once those are in, then we'll be able to put a first coat of paving on that, which will greatly reduce the amount of dust that gets created, because we'll be using that for storage areas and things like that. And so we're very optimistic about the way things have gone so far. We've gotten tremendous support from the administration. Thank you, Jay, and from Dr. Morris and Sue. Everything's been running really well. The architects have been fantastic. You know, no set of plans is perfect, but theirs have been darn close. And anytime we have a question, they get answered, you know, within a day or less. So, you know, it's really great to have that kind of response from an architectural firm. So we appreciate that. Jesse, you want to come up and kind of walk everybody through? So these are some photographs that we're taking. They're not many, but just kind of give you a flavor of what's happened.
All right, so these are pictures from early site work. This is the retaining wall forming the boundary of the site. These are the drilling of the geothermal wells. The piping to the building, that's the geothermal vault on the bottom. This is all the site work for the foundations, and then, of course, forming and pouring the foundations. These are pictures from steel erection, which began about 2.5 weeks ago. So the bottom portion, you can see the risers. So there's about 2,500 pieces of steel. This kind of gives you a visual of how the each delivery is broken up. So right now we have finished phase 10, which is in the upper left corner. And then hot off the press are these pictures, which were the delivery of the a couple of the trusses today. So the 100-foot truss in 2 pieces are in the upper left-hand corner and the bottom of the screen. And then the right hand is one of the smaller trusses, which, you know, at about 60 feet, kind of feels weird calling it smaller, but not as big as the mega truss. So that was picked up and over into the recital hall. So if there's any questions, feel free to ask. Yes.
I just want to reiterate that it's just so impressive. Like, it's just amazing to watch how smoothly it's been going, and I thoroughly have enjoyed the tours, so thank you. My only question, and I did ask this on one of the tours, is that so far there's been nothing unexpected is what my understanding is. Things have pretty much gone. You haven't found any, you know, anything that you weren't expecting anywhere or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, we've lucked out with the weather. You know, there's been unsuitable soils and ledge, which we've had to take care of, but that's expected in a job this size.
As the steel comes in, as the structural steel comes in, are you doing any inspection, not like code inspection, but workmanship inspection on the parts that you're receiving in?
Yeah, we do. We have a third-party inspector come in, make sure everything, you know, has the proper bolts, is prepped correctly, welded, you know, has the proper welds.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, you see those come in that size, and you're really dependent on, you know, your vendor's workmanship. And
Yeah, so they have their own QC process, and they have special certifications, and then of course we have our own inspections going on.
Great.
Yeah, the process of a steel is quite complex. They will prepare a series of shop drawings, and there were probably, 3 dozen submittals that we quickly go through, then send them to the structural engineer and architect, who also do the same things And so all of the dimensions and everything are checked against the drawings, conformity to size of beams that make up a truss like that, or individual beams and columns. Everything gets checked by numerous sets of eyes. And at the end, you know, we'll look at it as the steel's going up and check, but then a special inspector comes in. And this is kind of on behalf of Audrey Klein. You know, she gets reports of all these inspections, whether it's testing concrete or rebar inspections and the structural steel as well. And that confirms for her that, you know, every single bolt gets looked at, every weld gets inspected. And so there's a lot of eyes looking at that as well. So, you know, some fun facts. You might have seen this report a month ago. I've updated it. There's 14,000 cubic yards of concrete in the ground so far. And, you know, the biggest challenge or hit to the budget so far has been the ledge and the unsuitable soils. And you never know how much you're going to hit. But what's been really positive is that they're constantly looking on how best to solve these problems. And the site work contractor, for instance, he came up with using some of the earth that was deemed unsuitable for its original purpose, and he was able to mix it with crushed rock that he took off site, or you know, he took it out of the ground here, or a ledge that he broke. He crushed it up, combined it with this earth, and came up with a fill material that was approved by the engineers. So rather than having to truck everything away and then bring in some new stuff, he was able to kind of dual purpose, and that reduced the cost to the project. And, you know, you're probably all aware that Rob joined us, Rob Sullivan, and he has been a real asset as well with his familiarity with code people in town. And he's just constantly been looking at, you know, how can we save some money? Being a taxpayer and everything really motivates him, I think. And so he has done some really good things in finding cost savings. For instance, that little geothermal vault there, he saved almost $5,000 on that one item because he did a lot of research and worked with the architects again to, hey, could we use this product? And, you know, they looked at it and said, sure. So he kind of got something that was stock instead of getting, you know, the vault that we had talked about using. So, you know, great flexibility on the architect's part to look at things and say, yeah, that's a good idea, and it worked out well. So yeah, we have 206,000 pounds of reinforcing steel that we put in the ground as well. You know, I told the guys on site when I was up Tuesday, says, you know, last time I was here, it looked like you'd done more work than this time because everything's been buried again. All that concrete is no longer seen, all the rebar, all that piping, the geothermal wells, everything's gone and in the ground. It's all been tested and approved, and so now we're on to something new. But the steel is a really exciting part. And if you have a chance tomorrow, Jesse, what time do you think that's going to go up?
Probably late morning.
So if you drive by, it might be too dark now, but it took 4 troopers to escort all these deliveries today. There's actually 2 pieces of trusses that have to be bolted together, and then there'll be 3 cranes operating to raise those up into place and get them set and fastened. So that should be a pretty spectacular and hopefully smooth operation, which, you know, you don't get to see something like that every day. So if you have an opportunity, you know, certainly welcome audiences. And you're all aware of the website set up with the camera. So, you know, we don't have any chance to goof off because everybody's watching all the time. Any other questions for us?
Andre?
Where would, I think I know the answer, but everyone else probably needs to know, where do we fall on the schedule? Are we ahead of schedule, on schedule, behind schedule?
Well, my partner, who is our field superintendent, never lets me say we're ahead of schedule. So we're on schedule. But we're pleased. I mean, the schedule is aggressive to get the students in February of 2022. There's a lot that has to be accomplished, but I'm really pleased at the progress so far. I'll give you an example. The steel erector, who is from Greenland, Novel Ironworks, they've been, what, two trailers ahead every few days? So they get these deliveries, and they're constantly calling back to the shop saying, send us more, send us more. Jesse happened to work for them for 5 years as a project manager, so he knows every key individual to talk to, and he's done just a marvelous job of keeping the steel information. There have been no delays because also the architects didn't respond to their questions fast enough, so the drawings were completed much faster than expected, and they were able to get us steel right when we wanted. And then Jesse kind of helped handpick the crew that's putting this up for us. So they're doing a fantastic job, and they're doing it very, very quickly, much faster than we had hoped. So keep your fingers crossed. Other questions?
I'm just curious what kind of communication you've had with the local neighbors in terms of work hours, nature of the work, noise, dust, what they should expect.
I'm not aware of any problems. I have to imagine that they were very happy when the well drilling stopped, because that was constant. And of course, those OSHA required backup alarms. Those are probably when, the site work contractor, I have to say also, was fantastic. He staffed that project with umpteen pieces of equipment. And at one time or another, I've seen just about every kind of construction equipment that I'm aware of come from his operation. And they were very, very efficient and got things done quickly. So I think that the sound of the crane and the generator and things like that is probably not quite as bad as the backup alarms on the big pieces of equipment and the constant well drilling, but we haven't had any complaints, and they've done a great job of sweeping up anytime a truck does track some dirt out. They've been right in there to clean it back up. So we haven't had any complaints from the town. Audrey Klein is working very hard to review the plans. We have a building permit only to a certain point. In fairness to Audrey, she just got the final sets, maybe 3-4 weeks ago. So she's working hard at getting that ready for us. And it's a big process for a project this size, but it's all seems to be coming together pretty well.
Any questions? Fantastic. Thank you so much.
Thank you for
guys.
having us. It's always good to see
Yeah.
you.
We have the enrollment updates. Dr. Morse?
Yes. As always, I just want to make sure the board understands that these are not official numbers. They're not official until October 1st, where the state collects the official numbers. But as of the opening of school, we have 333 Massway students, 293 Mohammed students, 663 middle school students, and 844 high school students. We did wonder what would happen with our homeschool population. Typically, we have about 3 dozen, and right now, it appears we have just a little over 60. So that actually was much better than I anticipated. So I think overall, we're holding our own. Those are pretty good numbers for the beginning of September. And when you look at the class sizes, at the elementary schools. Those are also in pretty good shape. You know, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that our numbers at Mohammed, if we were running a traditional system, would be pushing past the board's policy in third grade. But because we're running a hybrid system and a remote system, obviously the class sizes are much more palatable at this point. So I would say that the remote hybrid system is as balanced as it can possibly be. And my biggest concern is if and when we get to a place where we invite more children, or we get to the place where the parents have their choice again, which is, we said we would let them make a new decision for the second quarter. If we get a big shift, we have to figure out how we're going to handle that shift, because right now, everything is perfect in terms of staffing to students. And so the school system opened up officially today with a 3-week orientation remote learning model across the district. Todd and I were in the elementary schools this morning. Todd was over at Massway, I was at Mohammed, and watching the kindergarten children get off out of their parents' cars mostly, and some out of the buses. It's about a 2/3, 1/3 ratio today in terms of parents driving their children in. We set up an arrangement with the town of Madbury to use the auxiliary parking lot as a parent drop-off point. And when I was there, the Madbury police were making sure that nobody drove in there to park. So that was great that they were being very helpful. And Misty made an arrangement with the neighboring church to the Massway School, so that we're going to be using their driveway to bring parents into the school so we don't block traffic on a major artery, 155. I think it went extremely well today. I know that the high school and middle school had a good remote day. I don't want to pretend that this process is an easy process. It's an incredibly difficult process. You know, if COVID wasn't here, we'd be opening up school normally, and it's far easier to open up school normally. So there's a lot of moving pieces. I just would say to parents, for example, just be patient with us. Emails have gone out. For example, this is just one of the hiccups, where Jay and Suzanne were putting laptops out, and Josh had put out the email that when you pick up your laptop, you have to log in while you're on the property. So they just had to pick up the laptop and log in. Unfortunately, a number of people picked up their laptop and just went home, and then when they tried to operate the machine remotely, it wasn't logged into our system, so we had that hiccup. So most of the hiccups have been solvable, just inconvenient. And sometimes, you know, people's patience is strained because this isn't the model that people want. But at the same time, most people have been appreciative of the emphasis on health and safety. The one story I would share is, you know, the anxiety couldn't be higher across the system, especially for our elementary teachers who are, you know, in session for 2/3 of the children. And one of the things the Guild leadership shared with me is the amount of time that they've spent just assuring people that this school board and leadership had the students and the staff's health and safety as a paramount concern. But still, the anxiety is there, it's palpable. Lots of times, tears, lots of times talking people through their concerns. But really, the same with the parents. You know, it's a very anxious time for our parents and for our faculty, perhaps less so for our students, only because, you know, they don't necessarily have the full impact of how all of this is fitting together, though our older children certainly can express that. One of the cutest things this morning is that I observed was David has the children walking from the auxiliary parking lot right through the woods. And I said to David, it kind of reminded me of the enchanted forest with Winnie the Pooh. He should be putting up little Winnie the Pooh characters all the way through it, because if I was a 5-year-old looking at the path that he's carved for them, I think, yikes, because it's kind of like scary in some ways. But kids were jumping out of their parents' cars and bolting for the school. They were so excited to be on property. And I also want to say how very proud I am of the faculty. In spite of their anxieties and in spite of their fears, there isn't a single adult in this district who does not want to see children. And it was so rewarding for both David and I and his staff to be standing there this morning, and I know Todd shared the same story, and actually seeing students again. So, you know, it's both an exhilarating experience to see students on property and so exciting. And so today was an interesting day for the district, and I want to just thank everybody who made it happen.
I have one question. Just a question about the Barrington numbers, and I was trying to remember, is that pretty much what we were expecting, and so we didn't lose?
Over last year, we actually gained in the freshman enrollment, and so Barrington enrollment for this particular school year looks more like the year before and the year before, and not last year. Last year appears to be the hiccup year.
Yeah.
And we constantly get calls from Barrington at this point, do you have any more room, that kind of thing. Just as recently as last week, we had 3 inquiries, and anytime we have an inquiry that goes straight to Suzanne, because she has to make a decision where her capacity is, because we have to be able to provide programming. And I would say that Suzanne's been very generous, but we are definitely right at the edge of our capacity with Barrington tuition students. But very exciting to have them back where they were 2 years ago.
Dr. Morse, just maybe this is a deeper discussion and maybe something for another agenda, but I happened to receive an email directly and then another one, a different email from a constituent just this afternoon, that if I'm reading them correctly, they seem to indicate that the district's made a decision to place a condition on school sports, that is, you must not participate in any other sports, any non-district sports.
Yeah.
Could you just talk briefly about that?
Sure.
And maybe how that works?
Yeah, and it's not a condition they can't, it's a condition that they must make a choice. So historically, the district has had students who are on travel teams and participate in our program. But based on the decision by the school board at the last meeting about keeping our sports teams within the region, it made our varsity coaches reached out to Andy, and Andy reached out to me, and the varsity coaches wanted to say to the students, we would love to have you on our team. It is okay if you want to be on a traveling team, but because of COVID, you have to make a choice. So in this particular environment, we're making a decision that it is A-okay for them. We support them to work on a traveling team. We support them to be on our team, but we can't support them being on both. And the reason is we have no control over where the traveling team goes. They cross state lines, they cross the region, and that's exactly opposite to the decision that this body made at the last meeting.
So obviously the virus doesn't care if you're playing a sport or, you know, in a restaurant. So the concern seems to be that a sport that where you're traveling would possibly increase the likelihood that you might contract the virus. But obviously there's a lot of other activities too that would come with that same risk. Are we also going to address those activities, you know, going to a wedding or, you know, traveling outside of state? I mean, a lot of parents travel for work.
So we have conditions built into our COVID plan that you have a copy of.
Yeah.
So if a parent and family go to, I don't know, let's choose a state, Colorado, and they end up being quarantined when they return. The child would not be able to come back into school. So, I think that personal choices by families is different than sports choices by families, because the sports choice is directly connected to a board decision here 2 weeks ago. And so we're trying to be consistent with what the board's direction was. I mean, in terms of weddings, anniversaries, funerals, God forbid, that's outside of our purview.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm fully supportive of anything and everything we can do to mitigate that risk. Part of what I mean, the decision we made was incredibly difficult, obviously. And part of what I've come to terms with, to a degree, I suppose, is, or at least accepted, is that there's so much more that we don't control that influences our success and our ability to do what we need to do. It's just that I don't, I may have missed it, but I don't remember that being a part of our discussion on school sports. It seems like it's something that kind of came up recently.
It wasn't part of the board's discussion on sports. It's part of what the varsity coaches want to do in order to keep their teams safe.
Right.
And I think it's consistent with the direction the board made at the last board meeting. I think that's the issue. I mean, the board is not in a position to, and neither am I as a superintendent, to think through every permutation of a situation, but the varsity coaches expressed concern to Andy, who called me, and I said, that is a perfectly logical decision. Nobody's telling them they can't. That's not the position we're taking. We're just simply saying, choose which one you want to do, and we'll be supportive whichever one. There's no negative connotation if they decide to do a traveling team. We'll be very supportive of that. There's, and of course we'd be supportive if they play for us. But the other part of the sports world, just in terms of this conversation I would share with you, is we're having a devil of a time finding teams to play at the middle school level.
Right.
And so we may end up having to make a decision in relation to perhaps, other than a couple of games, working with ORYA Youth League to provide the physical activity. We can do condition training and that kind of thing on site, but we're not finding many middle schools who are going to float teams. So we're going to have to get creative there, Dan.
And that was one of my first concerns, was that, we're middle school sports, there tends to be a much higher rate of participation in the outside club type sports, during the school year. And that dynamic sort of flips once you get to high school. But my initial concern was that it might just completely derail our efforts to put some semblance of a middle school sports program together. Because at this point in the year, most folks have committed to the various programs that their kids are going to be playing for. So people are going to be maybe just making unexpected choices. I guess I wish we had sort of considered this sooner and had that be a part of our discussion. It is what it is. We're dealing with unprecedented times. I take that. But I just have a feeling we're going to hear from a lot of parents who are
I'm sure we will, but I think
caught off
that
guard.
the logic of the coach's recommendation is pretty solid. It supports the direction, even if this body didn't talk about it specifically. It's very consistent with what this body decided.
And I want to commend them, because from what I've observed, they are really on this.
And I want to say, thank you, Dan. Our coaches have been amazing in terms of the social distancing and the practices they put on, and truly have taken to heart everything that this body and this administration have talked about in terms of safety.
Yeah, and Andy too.
And absolutely.
Andy's the principal actor in this, and he's conveyed that message clearly, and they are fully on board with it, from what I've seen.
But thank you for offering that, Dan. Denise?
Just a thought. I guess I would be interested in seeing once, and I know it's just a work in progress, but once there is a schedule of games or,
We definitely will
meets
share
or
it.
so on, if we, if we could get a copy of that.
And I didn't
We
intend-
might want to check them out ourselves or just to be aware of.
And I really didn't intend to talk too much about sports, but there's probably one more thing that's worth saying tonight, and that is we had put the burden of travel on parents in order to lessen the burden on trying to social distance on buses. And the Exeter school system is willing to play us, but they are only willing to play us if we transport our kids down on buses because they don't want parents on the property. So their rule is no spectator parents. So I did talk to Tom about it and just simply said, this is also inconsistent with what, the board direction was, and we felt it was, if we wanted to play, it was a reasonable request. And so just putting all my cards on the table, I said to Andy, I think that's okay as long as we follow the same exact rules we're doing when we're moving kids to and from school. No more than 26 kids, windows open, masks on, that kind of thing. Otherwise, we just take Exeter off the table. And I think that given the limited number of schools we can play in the southeast region, that would be a major loss. So I just want to make sure the board knows that I green lighted that, and if you want me to put a red light on it, I'll do that. But given the circumstances and the limited schools that we can play, I felt it was okay as an exception.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you.
Just wanted to continue before I put Jay and Suzanne up, and Denise may speak to this later in the committee reports, but the anti-racism committee met again last night. It was a very, very engaging meeting. We've had about 6 people express interest in the open board position, 4 have submitted their cover letter and resume, and the other 2, I imagine, are actively putting it together. And we've had 15 people express interest in the retirement incentive, and I'll bring that to the board at the next meeting. So I would turn it over to Jay and Suzanne to talk about their opening.
Sorry, before we move on, so the retirement incentive, those are committed offers, so if we decide to go forward, those are definite, right?
Yes, if you approve them, then it's a lock.
Right, so that's more than interest, that's like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, the reason I didn't say anything more than interest is
Because
it
we haven't
requires you guys
acted yet,
to.
right.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Once those approved, they're irrevocable.
Right.
Good evening, Jay Rashad, principal of the middle school. Just checking the power, see what the PowerPoint is. The architects threw a curveball at us.
Story of your next 2 years.
Great point, Michael. Again, Jay Rashad, the principal of the middle school. Just want to give you an idea of some of the activities and orientations that we've been doing for the middle school. We've spent a busy couple weeks planning these things. Just this week, I was very fortunate. I got to start to see students on Monday night and Tuesday night. We did our annual 5th grade meet and greet. One of the positive things that can happen when you try new things, we did it very differently. Typically, we'd do a meet and greet. We'd have an hour. I think Dan's probably experienced this. We have a whole slew of parents come in. We actually used a new technology platform via bookings to have families come in, socially distance. One of the thoughts some community members had said, geez, our kids are going to have a hard time socially distancing with masks on, and they did a wonderful job during the meet and greet, and families left, I think, very pleased. Thanks, Alexander. On these meet and greets too, some families did not feel comfortable, so we offered remote offerings for them. So for example, the staff members that did meet and greets on Monday night actually offered a remote option on Tuesday night, and vice versa for the Tuesday night group. Our orientation dates, we did have 5th graders in today. It went exceptionally well. It couldn't have gone any better, I believe. And here's the dates we're bringing the other groups in. We'll have 5th graders in tomorrow. We have been offering breakfast and lunch to students, and we'll have the 6th graders in when we get back from the Labor Day break on Tuesday. So there's some dates. This is our OMS plan for targeted learners. Next week, starting on the 8th, we'll start to slowly bring in some special education students. Andrea Beniskevich, who does a wonderful job, has been planning that. And on September 3rd and all other Wednesdays, 5th grade will be in the building, half in the morning, half in the afternoon, so 80 per session. On September 30th, that's when we'll start bringing in the MTSS targeted groups. Our teachers will select who those 20 students are. 20 would be the max. These groups will run for 5 consecutive weeks to cohort those students, and then after that, we might take up to 14 days or 2 weeks to determine what the next groups will be. Some students could be repeat targeted students, but we could also have some new students in terms of what we learn in those first several weeks. A big piece of that is in terms of just organizing transportation for Lisa. So she needs a good amount of time to make sure she plans those bus routes. So it's not something we really can change in a few days. So we want to give her as much time as possible to plan that. Here's some ORMS communications that have gone out. On the 11th, we gave back to school information. On the 13th, we gave information to incoming 5th graders. We've had new parent meetings and communications. What I mean by new parents, those are new to the school district who moved into the district. We've also offered remote offerings for those parents. I did some Teams meetings that were very successful. Important back-to-school information was sent out last week. We've also been updating our 5th grade program in terms of music, organizing that. We plan to start music instruction not next week, but the following week. It's taken a lot of time. Our music staff have done a great job organizing that, what it looks like for those new students.
Could you talk a little bit more about what music is happening? Are you talking band?
Great question, Denise. Our music program is fully remote, so our strings program, band program, and chorus program will all be starting. We're going to start with some basic instruction until we move into instruments several weeks later. So music will fully start. And this Friday, all parents and students receive welcome back letters from our teachers. Their schedules, what to expect, who your teachers are. Again, this is kind of a repeat. We did the new student orientations. We actually had small groups of students come in and have very small tours working with our custodial staff. Did a ton of work over the past several days in terms of our teachers, in terms of professional development. I won't read them all, but there's a very thorough list in terms of offerings. Something that was very popular was with our New Hampshire Listens, our anti-racism and social justice trainings. They were exceptionally done. Trauma skill training, SEL support for our students. Kudos to our librarian, Nick Bellows. We've distributed all the laptops since last week. We did it on days where we had certain grade levels come in. It was like a curbside pickup. I checked it out today. We've only had about less than 10 laptops that haven't been picked up for all our students. So he did an exceptional job. Our 5th graders received their laptops today. And as Andre and the others already talked about, our steel is being erected. It's something very exciting. Every once in a while, Bill Sullivan and I get a challenging email, and we'll say, let's take a 5-minute steel break and check that positive development out before we get back to some challenging stuff. So.
And Jay, could I just add that Andre has been pretty insistent that when Jay does have students in the building, that he wants to give them tours of the property as well as part of that orientation. So Jay's orientation was faster than Andre was expecting, but we'll bring kids back in so they can actually experience that building.
And for example, the 5th graders have gotten to see it today. They're just thrilled to look at it. It's amazing to watch. And our STEM teacher in 5th and 6th grade, Mr. Lofgren, he's tailoring some of his online lessons right around exactly the building project. So exciting stuff. Any other questions from the board? Great. I'll turn it over to Sam.
Good evening. So the high school also has been through an orientation process. We started actually over the summer meeting with groups of freshmen, and that was the admin team. But as far as the last few weeks, we've been meeting with 9th graders. They came in Last week, we started on Wednesday, having small groups of freshmen come in, and they went through a rotation. So the kids in small groups had a tour, and our NHS students came in and gave tours to the kids. And then they moved on to having their pictures taken, because for high school, pictures really are important. It allows for student IDs, and a lot of kids need those IDs for jobs and for other things. So we like to offer that to all of the students. So we offered that as an option. And then the freshmen picked up their computers, and we also had a debrief for kids with with a counselor. And so that finished up on the 2nd. And today, and during the off times when the freshmen weren't here at the high school, they came from 1 to 3. And in the morning, we had sophomores coming to pick up their computers and gave them the option of having their picture taken. And then also juniors and seniors who were in need of technology, we had time set up for them to come in and pick up their computers. We do have a handful of computers left over, and so we're working through that to determine if it's because students aren't in need of those computers or if they weren't able to come and pick them up. So we're still working, and Lisa Richardson and the paraprofessionals at the high school have been working they worked very hard to ensure that all of the students had their computers. So I just want to thank them for their work. Today was our first day of school, which is fabulous. We had advisors meeting in the morning. We have a special schedule over the next couple of days, so that each day starts with an hour-long advisory, and during that time, they're really working through a lot of areas with the kids. Things like how to move around Schoology and how to check PowerSchool. We have what netiquette. So what does netiquette mean, and how do we use Teams and interact with each other appropriately and effectively? And then also doing some SEL and trauma skill training that the faculty had over the professional development days, just really having those conversations with kids about the start of the year and also about the close of last year, because that was a difficult close of the year for them. So those are all things that are happening over the next few days. And then the 8th through 11th, it'll be a gradual sort of blending of these topics into content. So what is, talking more about specifically how Schoology is used with the content and it'll be a gradual increase of that. We do have some advanced level classes, like our AP classes, that probably will move a little bit faster, and running start classes, just because they are under a different time frame. And our running start classes work alongside with a college syllabus. So those classes may have a little bit of a different rollout than our other classes. So our plan right now for targeted learners, Melissa Jean and the special education department, they're working to create the cohorts of students that are going to be starting to come in on the 14th. And so that will occur at the high school starting on the 14th, Monday, Tuesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. We will have students coming in to work, and it'll be approximately 30 students a day to begin, and then we hopefully will increase that over time. And then on Wednesday, the 16th, we're going to start introducing MTSS identified students. And that, again, will be around 30 students to begin with, and then we will slowly increase. We've been spending a lot of time getting the classrooms prepared, figuring out where to put extra furniture, how kids are going to move throughout the building. If you move through the high school right now, you'll see that we have some taped signs, because we haven't stuck them to the floor quite yet. We need to figure out where our traffic patterns are going and how kids are coming and going, and entrances and exits and all of that type of thing. So you'll see those signs throughout the building, and those will be all set in time for the kids to come back on the 14th. And then we're really excited to be working with the Brown Center. They've offered us some virtual team building for our freshmen, and that we're going to be doing in October, the beginning of October. So we're working with them right now to make that happen. So communication from me, these are some of the different communication points that I've had. This is just from me, though. We have Mark Milliken, our Dean of Faculty, who's been sending communication regarding Picture Day, and Mark and Mike McCann, the Dean of Students, they've both been sending information about orientation and computers and all different types of things. So, but this is just these are my messengers that I've sent. A lot of this information will end up on the PTO Facebook page, as well as other Facebook pages and other locations also. So I've been sending information out as much as possible. If I hear that there's confusion or questions about something, then I try to address it right away to help to clarify those questions that people may have. And things that have occurred and that we look forward to, I really want to just acknowledge the faculty at the high school. They've done an amazing job. They had some intense professional development occurring throughout the week last week, all around everything, as Jay said, about trauma skill training, to copyright law, to virtual learning, Teams meetings. I went to a couple of trainings. I learned a lot about Teams. I learned how to use the whiteboard on Teams. I learned quite a bit. How to invite people in, how to make sure that you're closing a meeting so that people don't stay on to the meeting after the meeting is over, to ensure that, safety for kids and all kinds of different things. And so it's been really quite amazing. I want to thank Celeste Best for all of her work. She has done an amazing job offering opportunities for faculty and really supporting the faculty as we move through remote learning. We have SALT and Mr. Ricciardi and Ms. Casimiro working on Virtual Spirit Week. So we're really hopeful we're going to have some spirit activities occurring. Ms. Jensen is working on the student elections, which would include a representative that would be coming here and sitting with all of you at school board meetings. So we are working on that process right now. We are working on the supply pickup, so that will hopefully be happening next week. And as I said, we are continuing to finish up our classroom designs, signage, arrival dismissals, all of the different process to have kids coming to the building. And we've already spoken about athletics. And that is it. So does anyone have any questions? Denise?
It just sounds like so much work. Thank you both. Just in terms of how transportation has gone and I guess, percent of people as far as driving kids in, or in the high school, maybe they are driving themselves, and how many are taking buses when they've come in, like for orientation or that sort of thing?
So freshman orientation, we traditionally haven't offered bus transportation, and so that we didn't, I can't speak for Jay for the busing for the middle school, but for freshman orientation, we did not offer the bus transportation. As far as the way it'll look beginning on the 14th, we're gathering that information right now. That's one of the questions that we're asking families is, will you need transportation from our bus system?
Denise, we had a small amount of students take buses today, maybe 20 to 25 in the morning and the same in the afternoon. So that's probably about maybe 20% of our students, but I have to give a lot of credit to Lisa Huppy. We had, no issues today. Typical first day of school where there's miscommunication, whether a student's going to get picked up or take the bus. We only had one of those. I know that the numbers were definitely reduced, but that's a common thing at the middle school, miscommunication. Do I take the bus home or am I getting picked up? So it went excellent. It really, again, a lot of credit to Lisa and her staff.
It just seems to me that even though you're in a remote, for the middle school and high school, there's a lot of connection going on between these orientations and certain targeted students, and it seems to me both of you have this plan that it's not like a frozen stage, it's like a stage that kind of evolves, for more inclusion as you move along. So it's not a static stage. So I think that's really encouraging, because I think sometimes people, when they think remote, it's just this total isolation, and that's
Right.
not the case.
You're exactly right, Tom. Yep.
The hope is to create the systems right now. I mean, we want to create the process and procedures and systems to ensure that we can bring more students back into the building. So I think that starting small and slowly bringing kids in is a great way to ensure those systems and those practices are effective.
Question.
Right.
Actually, it's more of a district-wide question, more for Jim. Are we taking advantage of the extension of the seamless summer program for food?
So, thanks. I wasn't going to mention it tonight because we've received a memo from the federal level that has not been yet supported at the state level, unless it happened today, and you know more than I do.
They
but-
sent some more info, but you know how it works.
Right, so
Always the-
since
the
Brian
guidance
has
is not
let the
great.
cat out of the bag, and I was going to wait 2 weeks until I knew for sure, because we've run into this before with the USDA where they send out a notice and then we think it's a go, and then the state said, not yet, and so it was kind of a herky-jerky thing last spring. But the federal government has said that they're willing to extend the summer program yet again through the end of December, which would mean that our breakfast and lunch program would be free to those who want to use it from now through the end of the calendar year. And I just want to put that big asterisk out there after that. We're still waiting for confirmation from the state level. So, yeah, that would be fantastic news for children across the state, of course, and it was a great success in our district last spring, so.
There's actually a double asterisk because they said it's either till December 31st until they run out of money,
Oh, there you go. 2 asterisks, so.
which is extremely vague.
So I would hope to have that confirmation by the next meeting, and I will hopefully be able to remove the asterisks and say it's a go until they run out of money. Okay. Thanks, Brian.
Is that it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Sue?
Good evening. I have the end-of-the-year reports, both the DOE 25 and the MS 25. And I think the important thing to note is if you look at page 1 of the MS 25, remember we talked about the fund balance and what the fund balance would be like and what we would be putting into the emergency fund. So you can see on that page that there'll be a total of $900,000 in the emergency fund, and we'll be offsetting tax rate with $614,2496. Questions?
So I think originally, we thought 400,000,
Yes,
right?
correct.
But my understanding is that there's some shortfalls that the
Yes.
towns are going to be experiencing, and this kind of makes them whole by going to this other figure. Is that correct?
Actually, when I redo revenue, we have what's called the MS24, and I revise revenue for next year. There are going to be some shortfalls that I had to recognize, so that will help offset those shortfalls. Medicaid dollars, we don't expect to get as much. Catastrophic aid, and, the other small one was just interest earned on our bank account. So this will help offset that. And-
That's why it's a higher figure than the
Yes,
400.
well, it's higher because we can only put 900 in that, and then the fund balance is what's left. 900 is the max right now in that emergency fund, so we'll put the extra in towards the offsetting the tax rate, and it will help offset the shortfall in revenues.
So not to confuse apples and oranges,
Yep.
Sue, but just so you can tell the board about the legislation that passed in terms
Yeah.
of the cap being doubled.
Yeah, the cap will go to 5%, and my understanding is because our warrant article stated 2.5, we'll have to have another warrant article that authorizes us to go to the 5%. So that 2.5, which is now 900, can double if the voters approve that.
Okay, so that'll be a warrant article in the next,
Yes, correct. And I will
February.
double check that, but I'm pretty sure that because our warrant article specifically said 2.5, we'll have to have a warrant article that says 5.
So we'll
to get
bring
the
that
authority
through
to do that.
finance and then to the full board.
Yeah. Questions?
Is that 2.5 or 5% of the total budget or the apportionment?
No, it is the total. It's the total approved. I'd have to look at the actual language, but you're right. It's not the apportionment. It's the total budget. And it is calculated by DRA. There's an actual sheet they send us that says this is the maximum. And I asked them to do that now, and it's right around 906 or something, so 900 is the max right now.
So do you need a motion to approve both of these, or what do we need
It's
to
up
do?
to you if you want to. I'm going to
We
have
have to
this-
sign it, right?
Sign it, yep, I have them here. So it's your call.
I think historically you've taken a motion.
I think that's what we've done in the past.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we could maybe have a motion to approve both of those. We could separate those. Brian?
Make a motion to approve the MS 25 and the DOE 25 for signature from the board or board representatives.
Moved by Brian. Is there a second? Second by Denise. Are there further questions for Sue? Hearing none. Ready to vote? Denise Day?
Yes.
Al Howland?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Brian Cisneros?
Yes.
Michael Williams?
Yes.
Tom Newkirk, yes. So 6-0, those both approved. Do they need to be signed tonight?
Yes, I'll
Yes.
just leave them and you can
Do
hand
you
them
want to just
around.
circulate?
Yep, right here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sue, is that one where they have to sign on a specific line?
Yes, please sign by your name. Your name is typed on.
Not that we have a history of that.
All right.
Is there a finance committee report, Al?
No.
Because you guys did meet, right?
We're meeting next week.
Okay. Okay, I'm assuming that, but people could correct me if I'm wrong, that we're okay to resume normal meetings. There are going to be health precautions that are, going to be created in terms of distancing. So I assume public comment, we're going to figure out a way to do that in a healthy way, but
So Alex and I talked about how we would do it in this room. So bringing the board meeting here actually is an advantage, because if we shut down every other row and then we socially distance 3 seats apart, we can get 90 people in this room or 25 people in the lower section, and typically we probably have 6, 8, 12 people, so I think it'll work really well. Alex and I talked about putting microphones in the audience so public comment could be heard. So I think that this room will actually work pretty well. We'll have the public come in from the gym, enter that way, and then they would exit through the side door, so it's just one fluid motion. So I think we have a really good plan. Everybody would be expected to wear masks, of course, still, even though we would lower the emergency section of how we've been operating. We would just expect everybody to do what we're doing, socially distance, wear masks, and they'd be welcome.
so I would also think that the manifest committee, we would go back to our normal process of reviewing. And I know some people joined the manifest committee 6 months ago. And you could technically make an argument that your term is up, but I think it's not going to work.
Wait, are we not making that argument?
No, I just want to preclude that argument. So who was set to do it? Okay.
I know, Dan. was-
Yeah.
Okay.
So just to clarify, that will again be at 6:30 prior.
6:30.
Okay.
And just to clarify, our next manifest review will not be 6 months of manifest, correct?
No. You're
They'll
doing,
just-
it's based on merit, and since you guys are doing such great job, I want to keep you.
Yeah.
So does that mean that we are no longer going to be operating under the emergency order?
Correct. But we still expect people to follow the board's direction in terms of social distancing and masks.
But we don't have to do the thing in the beginning?
Correct.
The roll
I'm going to
call
really
vote,
miss reading that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I know you're going to miss hearing me read that.
And the roll call votes and all that?
They don't have to do roll call votes, no.
Smear this.
So I assume that everybody's okay with that. I think it's going to, and I think in terms of setting it up, it can be pretty much set up and, Alexander doesn't have to set up and take it down, so it's better for him.
So starting the 16th will be in this space as a normal
Space in
meeting
a
with
normal
public
meeting.
access.
Yeah, it'll be public comment, go back to have live public comment if people want to do it. So the other thing that I wanted to talk about in terms of process was picking the board member to replace Kenny. And I did have a conversation with Gordon Graham just in terms of right to know, like what can we deliberate privately, in non-public, and what has to be in public. And basically, he says this pretty much has to be a public public event. That the only thing you could do non-public is if there was, I think it'd be highly unlikely, some negative information that you'd have to go into non-public, and then just for the purpose of stating that, then you'd have to come back into public session. So it's essentially a public process. So I want to propose that the letters and resumes are coming in on the 9th, a week from today. I would like to propose that in the week from the 9th to the 16th, we, in our own schedule, could go into the district office, read through the letters and resumes, and become prepared on the 16th for our to talk about our top candidates. On the 16th, what I'd like to do is I would like as a chair to summarize who all the people who have submitted letters and resumes are and what strengths they would bring to the board. Then I would like nominations from the board for people to be voted on. So if there's a person you would certainly anticipate voting for, you'd like to have that person nominated. So there may be, if there are 5 people, there may be 3 nominated, all 5 might be nominated. Okay? Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you start, we're going in, we're reviewing all the resumes.
Yeah.
And then in our own mind, we're going to decide who we want to nominate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And so, I mean, you could still nominate somebody you didn't choose to vote for if you wanted that person, but, the idea that, if you anticipate voting for someone, you would want to make sure that person gets nominated. Then I would do the repeated voting similar to what we've done in the past, with the one exception that I'm going to, I'd like to not have us vote against people, because it's essentially the positive votes that matter anyways. So like, for example, if the first person, you might have 2 people vote for him, but you're not going to, I'm not going to count people voting against him unless, can you see, just in terms of.
So is it kind of like the same thing, you can only vote yes on one person?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then if you eliminate the lowest vote, and if you have to go back, yeah, Dan?
Could you just document this so that, because it's going to be a period of time before we actually do it. And
Okay, I can send out a
I think it'd be
memo.
useful too, just for the public to see the
Yeah.
process.
Yeah, yeah,
If it's in the minute, we can put it in the minutes and we'll all review that.
Okay.
yeah.
But we
is it
won't see that till right before the 16th, so I think it's probably good to get it out sooner than that.
True, yeah.
Yeah.
So how would you like me to document it, just to,
I mean, just sort of maybe just a
okay.
chronological sort of process, just like you described.
Is it clear the process I've just,
I feel it is, yeah.
yeah.
Because my only question is, it sounds like you expected us to go into the SAU office to review these. Is there a reason they can't be distributed to us
Yeah, I was gonna say-
without coming in person? Like by email?
Especially if it's public, everything is essentially public, right?
Yeah.
By Gordon Graham.
I don't see any reason why not,
Okay.
Michael.
It'd save me a trip.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, so those will be in on the 9th,
Yeah, a week from today.
week from today, so send
So
them
we could
out
distribute
immediately.
them on Thursday.
Okay, so,
So they have to be in by the 9th?
Yes, we had announced the end of the workday on the 9th.
yeah. Okay, so that's a process that, and then those will get sent out to you. We also have the negotiated MOU that we discussed it in the last meeting in a non-meeting. After that, Al and I met with Jim, and we went through changes that we'd like to see. We've worked on that for an hour. Then we met with the Guild and had spent about an hour working through the changes till we got to a point where we thought it was a satisfactory document. Since then, the Guild, I think I have this right, has voted on it almost unanimously.
I think theirs was 148 in favor and 2 against, so it was pretty unanimous.
Yeah, a very cordial negotiation, very amicable, and I think the Guild was appreciative that, although we were a bit surprised that we were suddenly kind of thrust into a negotiation, we hadn't quite seen that coming. I think we handled it, and they handled it well. So I don't know if people are ready to, if you have questions about it, if we're ready to vote to approve the MOU. Yeah, Brian?
Is it okay to ask a question about this?
Sure.
in Public? I actually have 2 questions. Overall, I think it's a great document. I really don't take issue with it. But the first one was, all staff and students were required to maintain a 6-foot social distance and wear a face mask when inside in a district building. Face mask, obviously that's a given, but if I'm not mistaken, and I'm not getting a lot of guidance from the state on this, but my understanding is if you are masked, you can actually be up to 3 feet apart. I mean, because it literally cuts our space in half.
So, yes, so Brian, as you know, a lot of the guidance that's coming out of Washington in recent months is very politically motivated. And so as a district, we decided to use the CDC guidelines from April before they got kind of played with politically. And so we felt that administratively, we felt the 6-foot distancing was really important along with the masks. So, the statistic that I read, Brian, was masked 6 feet and hand washing, you reduce the potential by 90%. So administratively, we felt it was really important to use the 6-foot barometer.
Right, my only concern was just it kind of pigeonholes us in the amount of space we can use.
Yeah, it does.
I'm not trying to put anybody at risk, but I think some parents might say, all right, I'm feeling more comfortable, we can send the kids back, we're going to have more kids coming back, and we're not going to be able to keep the 6 feet. So
Yeah.
that's my concern.
I was in David's cafeteria today, and it was pretty interesting how, he had set up the desks in the cafeteria, not even tables. I saw Suzanne's today. The way that we've arranged all of our remote work, all our hybrid work, when we have students in the building, we've been pretty meticulous, and we can handle the 6 foot.
Okay.
And it's really a better safety margin than 3.
And I think in the last paragraph, if the guidance changes, we can change it from the 6 feet.
I think in this instance, if we decide to change it from 6 feet, we would have to renegotiate this document, because this does become an addendum to the contract.
Well, that kind of falls into the next issue, which is the time frame. You have it till June 3rd, which I know is a contractual year for a teacher. But what if, no one knows what the future holds. So what if, let's say January 1st, the governor lifts the emergency order and there are no more restrictions because, vaccine, it's gone, what have you. But we're bound to this till the 30th.
That's right. So if conditions change, we would sit with the union and negotiate that change. So, the fundamental issue is, Brian, is a change being made for political reasons or health reasons. And right now, this document is 100% based on health reasons. And we've tried to just be so meticulous about staying away from political statements and positions and so forth. So being a negotiated agreement, just like our regular contract, if something changes, we would invite the Guild to the table, and we'd say, look, we have a vaccine now, and everybody can get the vaccine, so this document is no longer valid. That would be a conversation we would have to have with the Guild.
And what about when FMLA and FCRA runs out? Time-wise, that's going to be right before Thanksgiving.
That's right. So Emergency Federal Family Leave Act, that terminates in December. That has little to do with this and has to do with why a person can be out. So ADA doesn't terminate in December. This has more to do with the staffing pattern that we have in the school right now. And we've worked through the request for health reasons to be out. The Emergency Family Medical Leave Act, that does end, and that's really, then that doesn't become an issue because there's no Emergency Federal Leave Act. But the other pieces are still true.
My only concern was if their time of protection runs out, do they get extra protections through this?
No.
above and beyond that?
No,
Okay.
not unless, the only way they get extra protection is if they qualified under ADA. There's no extension unless the government extends it, which, who knows what's going to happen in November. That's a possibility, or it's not a possibility, depending on who gets elected. But the other federal statutes are still in effect, and so we have to accommodate, as you know, health-related issues. So we're doing that right now, and we're doing it successfully. And those teachers have all agreed to be working remotely, so we haven't lost any manpower in the transition.
Those are my only questions, and you've answered them fine, so.
Denise?
Just, it's really minor. There's a couple of little like typos, and so I don't know if they're worth correcting or just let them be. One is under the first page, number 3, where it does talk about FMLA. There's a period after that. It should really be a comma, because if the request qualifies under FMLA, comma, it is agreed that any such employee shall remain out of work, blah, blah, blah. So
Thanks, Denise. I don't think that anybody would argue over a
on
comma.
that. And also on the next page, so it would be page 2, on number 7, it just needs to be a period after absence, so there's just no period at the end of the sentence. It's real minor stuff, but it's
Gotcha.
lovely.
Okay.
No, a lot of eyes have looked at this, and, those are the kind of details sometimes, no matter how many times you read it, you don't see. So thank you.
Well, while we're on that, number 18, I wasn't going to say anything, but last sentence, if the district supply device is not operational, it says in.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Okay.
That's it.
Are there questions? Editing issues? No? Could I have a motion to approve the MOU and authorize me to sign it? Yeah.
Motion to approve the MOU and have the board chair sign.
Moved by Brian. Is there a second? Second by Denise. Further questions? Hearing none. Denise Day?
Yes.
Al Howland?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Brian Cisneros?
Yes.
Michael Williams?
Yes.
Tom Newkirk? Yes. So I will sign the MOU. Do I need to do that now, or? You got it? Okay. Bring it around.
And thank you to the negotiating committee for working on this. I know where it started and where it ended. Great
It was a
spot.
good process, really. I
It
think.
really is.
This was a 9-2. So I think we're to the motion to approve the ORCSD SRO and truant officers for Durham, Lee, and Madbury. Have a motion to approve those.
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Denise. Is there a second? Second by Brian. Discussion on that? Denise Day,
Yes.
Al Howland,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Brian Cisneros,
Yes.
Michael Williams,
Yes.
Tom Newkirk, yes. Those are approved. We have a motion to approve middle school and high school coach nominations. Denise?
A motion to approve the nominations for, Lewis Atkins for varsity basketball, Liam Conrad for boys reserve soccer, and Megan Johnson for grade 8 volleyball.
Moved by Denise, is there a second? Second by Brian. Discussion?
Yes, I commented last week when we were talking about policies that the process that we use to manage procedure I think is not very robust. And I think this is another area where the degree of oversight that the board applies directly is very limited. And I would rather not be voting on things that we're not really involved in and don't need to be approving. So I'll be abstaining.
Other comments?
Yeah, I agree. You know, while I want us to continue to be appraised of who's being selected and some of their background info, I think it would work better if we focused our efforts on working with the administration to refine policy, rule, procedure, that sort of thing, and delegate this to the administration. So I'm going to abstain as well.
Other comments?
No, I mean, I agree. I think that, I agree with that sentiment. I think our real job is the policy and procedures for the coaches, much more than the coach. I think the discretion really becomes applying that policy and procedure to the hiring process of the actual coach.
The current policy is that we approve the coaches, is that correct?
Well, it's, historically, the district has done that, and, you know, I don't know what the current policy says, because this is just kind of operationally how we worked since we've all worked together, so I would have to review the policy and see whether it's necessary, but what I'm hearing is that you just assume that coaches be administratively approved. Am I reading that right?
Can I make a suggestion? Since we do have a policy committee, can you guys take this up at the policy committee and actually go through what the actual policy is and the nuances of it, and then come back to us?
Sure.
Yeah, and having just had conversations with Andy Lathrop, I know he has thoughts on how we can continue to refine and do a better job of both decision-making and conveying roles and responsibilities and all these various elements that go into athletics. So my hope is that the policy committee could work very closely with Andy and really sort of follow his lead. He has a unique perspective on what works well, what we could do better, and I think we could probably take a crack at that for sure.
So ready to vote? Denise Day,
Yes.
Al Holland,
Yes.
Dan Klein,
Abstaining.
Brian Cisneros,
Yes.
Michael Williams,
Abstain.
Tom Newkirk, yes. So that's like 4 yeses and 2 abstaining. So those 3 coaches are approved. So we have a policy for second read. Right. Denise, you want to just,
Sure. I mean, these are the policies that we reviewed last time that are based on new law, and they have been thoroughly vetted by our lawyer and by Catherine Plord as well to make sure that they conform with the new law. So given all of that, I'll make a motion to approve the following policies for second read: AC, non-discrimination, equal opportunity, ACAA and R, harassment and sexual harassment of students and procedure, and ACAB and R, harassment and sexual harassment of school employees and procedure, and that's for second read.
moved by Denise, is there a second? Brian? Discussion? Hearing none. Denise Day,
Yes.
Al Holland,
No.
Dan Klein,
Yes.
Brian Cisneros,
Yes.
Michael Williams,
No.
Tom Newkirk, yes. So by a vote of 4 to 2, those are approved. Are there committee updates? Denise?
The only thing, it's not an update, it's a question in terms of policy committee and whether we should continue to meet remotely or meet in person. We had been meeting remotely as Kenny was part of the policy committee, and I just wanted to kind of throw it out there. It honestly doesn't make any difference to me. I can do it either way.
I would encourage us to start meeting in person, as long as you both are comfortable, because it's a small committee and, yeah. Well, it's 3 when we're at full force.
There's an opening now, but, so right now it's Dan.
Yeah, Wendy's there as well. So future meetings, except I think they will not be hybrid remote. I think for the 16th, that'll be a regular meeting, right? So I think we've done our work for tonight. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Moved by Al.
second
by
that.
Michael.
We passed, Michael.
My last roll call that I have to do. Denise Day?
Yes.
Al Holland?
Yes.
Dan Klein?
Yes.
Francis Cisneros?
Yes.
Michael Williams?
Yes.
Tom Newkirk, yes. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.